Okay, we'll start the next part. I did find the 01 pencil that I had. I didn't see a significant difference in the thickness of the line, so I'll probably just use the 03 so it's not so hard on the tip. But again, I'm keeping this in mind of the original flooring, so just so you, if you're just catching the second part, that we're working towards getting this flooring material onto the 1/2 inch scaled furniture plan. So I'll keep that nearby to reference for color. I know that I was working towards this example here and utilizing the drafting board. I'm going to see how that goes. Right, so if we have it where I keep that in mind. The other thing you'll notice on this original drawing, I haven't inked the walls yet. So I'm going to wait because, again, if that overlaps the edge, I don't have to worry about it. And then I can go ahead and just do black and it's going to cover over. So there's some things in the drawing that normally we'd have for our technical aspects. Right now I'm not putting that on because of those reasons. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this board and I'm going to pull it across. I'm keeping in mind what I have underneath it. I'll just take it as close as I can. So I'm thinking about what's underneath it. I may need to come in with the edge later, but that's okay because I've got a plan for shadow underneath there anyway. Okay, so we bring that in. This is going to come around here. Just plan for its absence. And I can go back over. I'll pull this up because I didn't have it flat. A little time consuming over in this corner, but the reality of it will pay off later for sure. I'll do something like that. Maybe I can angle the marker. And I have to, it's kind of, I'm tempted to just deal with that floor behind there. Oh, I can go more over here. But if I don't plan that they line up, it won't be as believable on the boards. So I'm going to try to keep it in that same position. But one of the things that I just realized is that if we had that north-south direction, this is my north. So guess what? I have to change it. So let's go ahead and let's just run it the other way. We can plan for some shadows that way. We're not going to start again. We're the artist. Let's just see how it goes. So that'll actually be a little easier perhaps. All right, so we'll come here. Now, when you're over by the windows, the other thing that would be good for us to plan for right now is to go ahead and think, okay, if the light is coming from this, and I think of it like a midsummer afternoon, and the shadows are long, the light coming in would probably do something like this. So you can see they overlap with the lights coming through. So we can imagine that there won't be anything here, right? So do a similar idea. This one's quite broad. We don't have to compensate from it coming way over here. We're just kind of having this main idea. And we'd see that the light would come across here. It would come across here. So I'll just plan for some shadows along here. And this is where that framing of that window ended. And I'll have that come out. The other thing we know to plan then is if the light's coming this way, what is it that I'm going to see in the chair? We know that under this edge here, that's going to be more of a shadow. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to try to add in some shadows now. I'm going to do a cool gray as my shadow. I think I'll just do that throughout. You can decide if you want to do a warm or a cool, but if we think about how that light's going to come from the back, we can plan for that. And we could also imagine then that that light is going to come from that window. And if it's coming directly over, I'm going to plan for the shadow to do something like that. Now I'm drawing in the lines because I want you to see them. Some of it you could just do with your triangle and imagine it. But you can see when I put the pencil marker over the pencil, it starts to smear it. So I'd probably avoid doing the pencil lines. And that's the thing of, if you would have drawn that original drawing here, it would also mean that you'd be having extra smears and things in there, and you don't want that. Okay. I'll have the line here where the back and the top are. You can show the then depth of the arm to the back, and then we'll have that come over. Right now, that was an that was like a 10% gray. I've doubled over it. It's sort of picking it up, but I want to see if I can go just a little bit darker. So I'm going to find my next gray marker, and let's see what happens if I just do, here's the 20%. I think you guys would have had 30 in your kit. So here's the 20. I'm actually blending warm and cool in this case. So we're getting it. I'm doubling over it. So it's starting to show. I'm going to plan on my practice paper before I do a whole lot with this, but I have a feeling it probably would be good to do up right along the edge. So I'm gonna go for it. Right. So right now I'm not going to worry about it being right over the edge. I'm going to play right along the inside though. Right. The other thing I could do is I could do a little bit with my pencil. But again, the more marker you do, the more it's going to have a little bit of a hard time with it. So the pencil, I usually do it a little bit later. Now that was the 40%. I'm going to go back over the 20 while it's still fairly wet and see if I can't use this as a blender. So that you've got that there. And then there also, of course, is the Colorless Blender. Let's see what happens when I use that. You've got to use that fairly close to the time that it's still wet. All right. So it's a little bit shocking right now, but when you get done with it in the end, it's really going to be a great way to highlight shadows and things that you've got. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and go with the cool gray one. Come in through here. I'll use this tip. But I would suggest that you go ahead and do those shadows. I'm going to erase what I had here for my description to you because I want to make sure that it doesn't smear in my render. All right, so that's these. You can go in and plan for it where you've got the shadow. You could do a test run underneath it, but for the time that you've got, I just go for it. Just kind of have it come in and just use that as your guide. All right, so we've got some of the shadow lines from here. You can always go back over it later too if you want a better edge. We have our column as well. So I'll at least follow along with that for the column. So I'm going to plan that the light is coming from here, and we'll just do something similar to the idea where it kind of comes across here and it's going to go here. And I can always change it if I don't like it later, but I do think it's easier to go ahead and do it in your base. We know that we'll have a shadow coming around here, and some of this you're just going to start doing really organically. You're just going to decide what it is that you have a main idea to. And later on, this one will probably be a definite easy one here to just go ahead and go fairly dark because it's even up against a wall. So I'm going to go ahead and just run that here, see if I can't get that to be even more shadowed. We'll come in with the 40. Really would rather have the 30, I think. All right, I'm going to go real conservative on this. Let's see if I can get this to go. Yep, it's working. Okay. It's interesting that jump that it takes from the 40. I'm going to do a little. This is that 30. You can see it's giving you a little bit more of a step difference here. So we can go here. So I'm going to go with the 10, the 20, the 30. So starting with the 10, actually I'm playing around with the 10%, the cool. All right, so maybe, you know, you're thinking it's going to come here, thinking it's going to come across here. Then we'll come in with the 20% as we get closer. And again, I'm playing around with warm and cool. I'm going to come in tighter here. And even though I don't have the circle template, I have it nearby to use. I'm going to wait to use that until I get to the end. If you find you're having a hard time controlling your hand, then maybe go ahead and use it. But I would just try to do it as a general idea. Again, that's why it's better to just be doing this where you have it. So you can see what's happening when I'm doing the shadow over top of it. I like the idea of doing it underneath it before I get started. Also for your sectional, this is one that is armless, but we still have a difference between the seat heights. So I'm back at the 10%. I'm going to go ahead and at least make it seem like this back cushion is higher than the other, but separate it at each cushion so that you can see that difference. And then what we'll do is we'll go around it, and it immediately can start to give us depth. So we're not changing direction necessarily, but we are changing material. In this case, I better put that in the back though, because we are. And now you've got your shadow in there, and we'll go in and we'll put the rest, but you can see that's already starting to give it a bit more dimension. So now back to don't make my mistakes. Let's make sure that we have the vertical line. Now it's going to run north to south for our wood flooring. Okay. So when we have this, I'm going to use that triangle again, use it as my guide. And I am right-handed, so I'm going to go ahead and have my triangle on the left and run it vertically. And now we'll see how that shadow shows or doesn't show. Okay, so we'll get it nice and flat. Now, this is interesting because it's starting to smear it a little bit. You probably would need to go in, but it's kind of funny because now I actually am creating board lines. It's kind of interesting. All right, and these were 4-inch wide planks. Let's just see what that ends up being here. If I'm in 1/2-inch scale, sweet. It's right around 5 inches, so that's pretty close. All right. Now, the other thing is to, of course, go ahead and clean your triangle. That would be another way to do it. Okay. And then what we can do here is to simulate what we've got. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down more so I can blend it with what I had before, so it doesn't seem like too much of an error. But you can also do it where we have it with the shadows. Now, this one doesn't have much of a lip for inking. I'm going to go ahead and use a different triangle that does. And there's a big difference to that. All right, and I'm going to worry about where that stops and starts with the darkness. And let's see how the shadows take that marker. Angle my medium here. Do that at an angle. Go across. I'm going to go ahead and lift mine up a little bit so I'm not My middle finger on my one hand is pulling that up over here so that I can avoid some of the ink. I'm not going to worry about some of the white streaks because there are some light qualities to it. I got to make sure I'm doing what I said before about carrying the lines down for the boards. So I'm still going to render my medium over the shadow. And you can decide whatever you want your technique to be. Kind of interesting, some of those white lines actually are giving me the idea of the boards. Instead of being in black, it's in white. Now, in that finish that we had on that sample board, you know, this could be something where if I look at your rendering, then I'm going to go ahead and go back to your finish schedule and see what it is you had in. So like for this one, if it was this lighter wood, maybe it is that it's existing, but if it was going to be sanded and restained, that should be something that is in your finish schedule. So the reason I'm doing this, just to reiterate, and I think I mentioned it earlier, but just to make sure that I did, we've got to spread this medium across a broad area. And if I have a guide, I find I move my hand much more readily across the paper. And that's one of the main things here as to why I'm doing it this way. In a minute, I'm just going to go through and probably it's just going to be all freehand in just a few minutes here. But if we get a base down, it's all good. But so this is why I haven't done the furniture yet. I'm going to go ahead and do the base first. I'm coming behind the sofa. Now, there were things that I was trying to do some of the gray, but there isn't necessarily something that doesn't say that you can't just go over with the same color too, right? So I planned for some of those things, found that, well, it's giving me a base, but I think with some of this, I'm just gonna go over. Remember, your medium is subtractive. I'll come in here with this a little bit tighter edge. Your medium is subtractive, so the more you put down, the darker it's going to go. All right, so we have something like this. We're not seeing a whole lot of that gray, but maybe we're gonna just leave it. So this one, I do like that 40%. This was that 40% up along the edge. Right, we will have a little bit around the whole piece itself, but then we just want to exaggerate it here, and I'm going to go ahead and run the medium the same direction as the boards. All right, and we know we have the medium over this way, so maybe I'll go ahead and just do the boards this way. So maybe it's not even the color that you do. Let me go ahead and try it just with more of the strokes of how the board's going to be. And then here was that area where we'll do the shadow. You can go in bold. You can take it later to the gray. Let's see what I'm just going to play around with this a little bit. I found the more I don't care, the more I'm happy with it in the end, because I'm a little more willing to make it abstract. Now I have that particular one. I'm going to come in with this warm gray and just kind of use that as a blender, and let's see how that goes. So that's that warm gray. All right. Come in with that, do something like that. All right, and then let's see, what else do we have to do? we're going to come back in and do our streaks of our boards. And I'm going to follow in there. I'm going to try to pull out my line. Follow the line that I originally did. Okay, so that's some of those streaks. I mean, wood is natural. Let's see what happens if I go back to the technique of running it with the board that I already drew and just do a random. So you can still do random, but you don't have to draw out every single line, right? And some of this may look a little bit crazy, but honestly, now in Olivia's sample board, there was the area rug, and that would be something I would anchor in there. If you have it up with an area rug, when you're in your rendering, you would do, like, pretend this is the rug. You would just do a line up along the edge there to do it. But I really wanted to focus in on that wood. In the case of the rug, I just planned for it to be open like I have the furniture. And then you can always do the line. If you have something extremely light in its finish, even though it's above the floor, I don't know, you may want to do that first. You'll have to see what you think. I'm going to come back over now with that. All right, so there's the beginnings of the floor. And I have an idea of what I need to do with the board width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do those wood grains that I mentioned. And I'm just going to use her example. And I'm literally just doing a number 2 pencil to put that in place. Necessarily in every one, but I'm getting trying to focus in on where is it on the board. Just sporadic, but within the width of it. Okay. I need to come in here a little bit more. Even though you've put those shadow lines down. Now the other thing you can always do too is whenever you have light, don't underestimate that white gel pen. You could always come in and do it right up along the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw in the planks, and then I'll start up with talking a little bit about the furniture.